Good evening and welcome to Political Cipher with Q. This is Quandra Gaines. I'm not going to be the host today. Lisa is going to be doing that for me. But please listen, reach out, ask questions, like, and share.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Ellis. Thank you for joining us for another segment of Political Cipher with Quandra. And we'll be joined today with Senator C. Anthony Muse, the newly elected senator in Prince George's County District. We're also joined live with Joe Gaskins and Bruce Branch. Joe and Bruce, if you can introduce yourself while we're waiting on the senator. Joe?
Yeah, I'm Joe Gaskins. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Gaskins from the Maryland Business Clergy, and I'm a business person and a local activist in the state of Maryland.
And I'm Bruce Branch, and I'm from the state of Maryland. I'm a community activist and an individual who's very concerned about what's happening in our community.
Great, Bruce. If I could ask you to lower your camera some. Okay, raise. Go up a little bit. There we go. We like to make sure that we all looking good and we're able to see each other clearly. Now, tonight's discussion is going to be broken down into 4 segments. The first segment, we'll welcome Senator C. Anthony Muse and discuss the importance of the 2 African Americans at the top leadership positions in Maryland, the governor, lieutenant governor, in particular. Then we would discuss issues with the Maryland school system, Baltimore City, and we'll recap on last week's discussion, ending the segment, the last 15 minutes, with a live business owner who's experiencing challenges in Prince George's County. So with that, while we're still waiting for Senator Muse, Joe, if you can open with a recap of last week's discussion.
Of course, I can. On last week, we talked about some issues that were vital to all in the state of Maryland, and we really were elated that we're now a government that's going to have its first elected African American governor, as well as a woman of color, immigrant as well, Lorena Miller, and Wes Moore. We also talked last week about contracts, which you're going to talk about at a later date, within the state that we saw that were problematic. And we also talked about what was more prominent with individuals in the community, especially the business community, was fraud, abuse, and misuse from a governmental level. And so I think those are the topics that we're going to be once again dealing with today. So the first African American in the history of the state, of course, all individuals should be aware of, is Wes Moore. Wes has spent a substantial amount of time campaigning, was successful, and now he is in the number 1 position in the state of Maryland to lead the state of Maryland. And we're working closely with him to make sure that he's addressing the issues of the Maryland population. So we're elated with that.
Great. So what I would like to do, though, is we left off with a very heated discussion that we wasn't able to complete, talking about corruption in Maryland. We opened up with talking about Vice President Sparrow Agnew and the governors of Maryland, Harry Hughes, Jack Johnson in particular, and that's where we left off. Bruce, I would like for you to pick up on that conversation, going back to Prince George's County and dealing with we can't say alleged, it was proven for Jack Johnson, and if you can go from there.
Yeah, I think Jack is a very interesting case because in his own way, he was pro-African American, but he was also pro-Jack Johnson, if that makes sense. And he felt in many conversations with him, he always felt that he was unfairly targeted because he had done many of the same things that others had done, but they were not as vigorously prosecuted as he was. And he's always maintained that it was his disdain for the establishment and his disdain uh, for actually white people. If you look at some of the tapes, he was very uncomplimentary to white people who had been controlling the county for many years. So, with that regard, I think there's a dilemma sometimes for African American leaders. Joe and I used to always tease each other that when people they go to Annapolis with the right intention, but is this if they get bit by some kind of vampire and they change?
But
We used to
wouldn't you
that.
say though that people? I don't mean to interrupt, but I mean we're adults, and you're asking for the vote of your constituents. And then you make an excuse that, well, other people have done it, but I'm not getting treated fairly. It's like, okay, so other people got away with corruption, and
Mhm.
and, and you did. But so does that
I'm
excuse
not casting a
behavior?
value judgment on it. I'm just saying what I have been personally told, and I think last week Mr. Haney he brought that to light in a little way. He skirted around it a little, but he brought that to light when we were talking about the airport. Uh, how why are we going after this guy? Even though they broke the rules, there he was in a position to break the rules. Why we just don't turn the other way? And I think that's a dilemma for a lot of African Americans in power. Maybe Senator Muse can address that, but I think that's a dilemma as you evaluate their service to the people. They go up idealistic, they want to do what's right for the community, but they start to get pulled a lot of different ways, and money is enticing. Although
You know,
our people seem to go to jail for small amounts of money.
I'm sorry. Accountability, wrong is wrong. And I don't care what color it comes in. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I think one of the main reasons we have a problem with voters turning out to vote in this country is because there's an accountability issue. And we as a people make excuses for poor behavior. And we shouldn't. If we want good elected officials, then show up, hold them accountable. And when they step outside of the line of what they promised to do, vote for someone else. I'm sorry, Joe. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I kind of compared to my children growing up and going to school, and then I'm pressuring them to do well in school and get good grades. And in fact, for them, I put in a system that they were accountable, and if they were accountable and made good grades, then I paid them. I think $10 for every A, $5 for every B, and $1 for every C, and
You
and
see,
that's the
he had
way.
money, Bruce.
And look, but
I
but
don't
but I,
know if I did that with Maya.
but the value system I wanted them to learn from that was that money is a driving source after you get out of school. So you train your kids to grow up, you train them to do well, and at the end of the day they're going to be competing on jobs. So you might as well teach them when they first when they're starting why they're going to school those 12 years and those years after college. It's because if I do well, I do extremely well, then I will get paid. Now, what has been suggested on that last show was that what one of my daughters could have possibly said is that let me go to school and cheat to get an A versus getting a B and C, and I'll get more paid more money. Now, that's what we were talking about with the airport contract and other contracts, is that I can skew the process
Hmm.
because I'll get the reward at the end of the day. it's not fair, but I win. And which is the worst thing that you can teach any individual. And I think that's what's the driving factor behind Donald Trump is he's a win at all costs, and he'll cheat, do whatever that's necessary to do that. And if you build a world of those kind of individuals, then I think we'll have a society that drops out because things are unfair. Uh, and in this particular case on this contract, when we were discussing that, we were talking about one entity. As I researched it further and found out that it was not only his company, there was three other companies that were African American individuals who were also bidding on the project. So what was suggested is that treat him well because he's an African American. But what about the two other African American companies that were part of the competitive bid process and who could sing that same song about I've been abused by the system, but you going against me, who's competing against you? Is it fair for you to get an inside because you know one of the most powerful contract lobbyists, and you
Yes.
know the governor, and you know the comptroller? Is it fair that you know the director of the airport and you can get him to lean your way? Is it really fair? If my product is superior, I can compete with anybody. And I
Exactly.
think and I think we learned that well with Wes Moore competing on a fair ground. And
Absolutely.
and other individuals who are African Americans who won despite not having a majority of African Americans in the state of Maryland. That shows you that the system is working and working well in the state of Maryland without cheating.
Ethics is a big issue. With Donald Trump announcing his run for the 2024 presidential as a candidate, that was alarming to me. But I mean, totally alarming. It was political analysts and pundits today analyzed his three runs and what he had in common. And I can align the common factors that he had with one, self-serving. Two, we're talking about a misogynistic person and the values that he have that is not common with the majority of Americans, that has been proven. And the line that with was what has happened across the state of Maryland, but particularly in Prince George's County. And in Prince George's County, we saw corruption, self-serving individuals that literally spent 4 years on the county council, 8 years on the county council, looking to extend their jobs instead of serving the people. I don't want. That's a problem for me, and I'm going to take a break right here because we were just joined by my dude, Senator C. Anthony Muse. You are official. Congratulations!
What's up? Thank you. Thank you. It's
Congratulations!
good to be on. Good to be on. I
Yes,
see some of my friends on, Reverend Bruce and Joe. Good to see you
Yes.
all on. If there's anyone else on and I can't see, I apologize, but I say good evening to all of you. It's good to be on tonight.
Senator, we are so excited that you are rejoining the General Assembly, and we want to open up the floor for you to give one an overview for those that don't know but should know the great C. Anthony Muse. But to give us an overview of you, your candidacy, why did you want to come back to the General Assembly, and what was this race really like for you? We'll get to that part in a few minutes, but give us the rundown.
Well, just in case there are some Baltimore people on, I am originally from Baltimore, and that's where I was born and lived there until I was 11 years old. My family broke up, and I ended up in and out of 11 foster homes, and some of them were abusive. So I often ran away from those homes and slept downtown Baltimore on the streets. And when I could steal a sandwich or something from Lexington Park, not because I wanted to, but because I had to eat. And then finally, the neighborhood pastor there, who was Reverend George Stansbury, who was pastor of St. James United Methodist Church on the corner of Monroe and Lexington, took me off the streets, found out I was homeless, and actually adopted me and took me in, and they became my family for the rest of my life. He was a great preacher, and he was one of those preachers who was involved in the community. And I loved him so much, and I looked up to him because no man, no father, no anyone ever took time with me, let alone allow me to be their son. And so I wanted to be like him. So I chose to go into the ministry just as he did. And I went into the United Methodist Church, into the United Methodist ministry. And when I was 26, I was working on my doctorate at Howard. I did my bachelor's at Morgan, my master's at Wesley, and my doctorate at Howard. I was working on my dissertation, and so they moved me to a church that they thought was closer in a place called Brandywine, Maryland. And that was in Prince George's County. That's how I arrived here. And not long after that, I got involved in the community. As my dad taught me, he said a preacher should not stay in the pulpit. Church is closed on Sunday. And if you aren't doing anything in the community in which you serve, you aren't worth anything. That was his words. Those were his words. And so I got involved, and then soon I was asked to run. I did. I first won for the House of Delegates and served there for 4 years. Came out, I served as the state ethics commissioner, which when I got on, I heard you all talking about some things and corruption, et cetera. Well, I actually served as the state ethics commissioner. I went back as senator. I served 3 terms, so that gave me 16 years in the legislature. And then this year decided there were some other priorities that I really had for our community, and especially for Black people. I often say, and I'll preface my next remark with this, because I am pro-Black does not mean I'm anti-white. But for us, for Black people, whenever you say in the Senate or anywhere else, I represent Black people, they say it's prejudice. But if you say I represent the Latinos and I represent, other, they don't say that. And so I don't take a back seat to that. I am Black. I represent Black people. I see the plight of Black people. And until we're able to say that and do that, and of course, that didn't bring me a lot of kudos from the powers to be at that time. A lot has changed now. I think I can get a lot done. And so for those reasons, I chose to go back. And the good people the other day elected me with 98% of the vote. So I thank God for that. And I thank God that they saw that at least I was going to serve as best I could.
Amen. Amen.
That's my story.
Amen. Unapologetically Black. I love it. That's me all the way. The senator, we have some real challenging issues that we're confronted with. So, and looking at your platform of your past, prison reentry, your second chance bill, your work that you did in the 26th district on housing, which is a passion of mine. Rent control. You have a lot of apartments in the 26th district, and seniors, 3 major senior complexes in your district alone. Rents have increased more than half in the state of Maryland. Laurel addressed the issue, and their mayor joined forces with some community organizations to help subsidize the rental rate after negotiating with the tenant. But that's only a short-term answer, and it's putting a Band-Aid on a problem that is steady growing. What do you see, or what is your vision for housing in your district and joining the state of Maryland?
Well, let me say, when you have actually been homeless, when you have had to sleep in the street, and that led to the other priority that I had, because as I said, stealing food from Lexington Market, well, we all know had I been caught, no one would have been concerned in that day about the circumstances. I would have been, charged, and I would have had a record. So those two go hand in hand, and here's what I mean by that. When you've been homeless, you know what it's like. Housing in Prince George's County, in my opinion, first we have gentrification that's taking place. It's as if they're making the statement that all poor people are criminals, and so we have to price them out of the market. That's wrong. There are many areas in this county and in my district where we can put up affordable housing, make them blend in, change some tax laws so that it won't affect the property taxes, because that's what most people say. Well, if you put up low income housing, it means my property tax status will change. Well, there are ways of looking at that so that we can change that, so that no house, every house that's appraised is appraised with every value minus the value of those who are minus the value of those so-called low-income housing. We have to do low-income housing. We don't do it because it's been it's noted among developers and others in our county to gentrify, make the county white again for a number of reasons, for political reasons, so that you can get other people elected, for economic reasons. There are many reasons, but none of them are applicable. We need affordable housing. When I was in, one of the things I was very proud of, was the Second Chance Act. And the Second Chance Act, and particularly the expungement came about as a result of the amendment to the Second Chance Act that I put in. I got all kinds of, bad press, trying to do this for criminals, et cetera, et cetera. Well, in my other life, I'm a preacher, and I know that people can change. And
Yes.
I was sitting in my congregation with people who have been deacons for 30 and 40 years, did something wrong when they were 20, and it was still on their record. And they were things that they couldn't do. They were trying to be small business owners, but they could not apply for grants, and they couldn't apply for contracts because that one thing 40 years ago. So I authored the Second Chance Act, and I authored the expungement bill, so that we could at least start somewhere, and I want to continue that. So with housing, I want to address it from the perspective that we have seniors, we have families that are just starting off. We should be helping them. If we can give $1 billion to National Harbor, we can put money aside in this county, in our county, for people who want to live here. All are not on the same economic level, but they're looking for homes. They're good people, and that's what I want to continue to fight for.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. Maryland doesn't have a rental cap. The big issue here is that investors have taken over in 2021, invested more than 40% of the inventory of new houses and apartments due to COVID. And with that, it drove down the inventory. So now the rental rates have increased. Maryland is not a state that have rent control laws.
Correct.
So we need rent control laws. And I mean, I'm not opposed to investors and business owners making money, but you have seniors that could not afford, whose rent originally maybe $800 and something, as it was quoted in the Washington Post, doubles to $1,600, making it totally out of reach. And the compromise was $1,300, which law is subsidizing that. These are rates that's gouging the community, and the state has a responsibility to put rent control laws or to help its citizens and voters to be able to live, or they'll be exiting the state. So
correct,
you know,
and I do not at all agree with, it's going to take money out of our budget. Well, everything takes money out of the budget. And when you look at some of the other priorities that the county may have, we really do have the money. We have to simply prioritize. I sponsored the rent controls and then rent stabilization is what I called, in order to get it through the House, so that at least we could discuss it. I did come up with a bill that was for seniors. I came up with a bill that was for seniors, and they didn't do it. The compromise, they said, we'll give a one-time $800 to all seniors. Okay, that's nice. It didn't really do anything. It was the best I could get out of it then. But as I said, the players have changed down there in many ways since I've been there, and I'm hoping to be able to put these bills back in. And now that I know there's another part of the county doing it, I'm going to partner with everyone from here to Baltimore to any place I can where they have the same issue. And hopefully we can build a block of people together that will come and support me when I put that bill in.
That's wonderful, because the Maryland business clergy is taking the lead on building a coalition and working with politicians to do that. Bruce, would you like to chime in here as a Maryland business clergy member? Can you hear me, Bruce?
I was listening. First of all, congratulations. Yeah, huh? I hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear you. Yes,
And I see that
Maybe
head.
I'm
we
messing
can
up.
hear you.
Okay, you got it, Bruce. What do
Go on
you
and
see?
talk. We can hear you.
Let me respond to that. What do you see, Senator Muse? What do you see as the most, most important issue?
And we
Bruce, you're having
what'd you say,
technical.
Joe?
Yeah, your system. Let me
Oh, y'all
respond.
can't hear me? I don't know why.
No, let me respond. What, Senator? What do you see as
Okay,
the
go ahead,
most
Joe.
important?
Test.
What do you see as the most important issues that have come before the General Assembly during your previous term of service? What are some of
So,
the issues in the past?
let me start with local rather than start with general, because we hear maybe 1,000 bills each year, and maybe we vote 400 or 500 of them out. Um, for me, it was those bills that dealt with first education, because as you know, we are, even in this so-called, and it is, rich, educated place like Prince George's County, our kids are doing horrible when it comes down to reading, math, science, and then we came up with with something that I really fought against. Well, okay, well, if we can't teach them how to read and write, we're not going to keep them in the same grade because we have to pay twice. We will just promote them from grade to grade, and when they graduate,
Shameful.
if they haven't met they
The
don't
basic
measure up,
requirements.
we will give them just a diploma that says it's a certificate of completion. At that point, I was irate because when you're paying your money, you have an obligation to produce a product that is successful. And if
Yes.
we're producing that many kids who couldn't read and write coming through our school system, and there were a number of reasons for that coming through our school system, and they couldn't read or write, and we were putting them on the streets. And I have colleges calling me, because I was on the education committee, saying almost all the kids that you send to us, they have to take remedial everything. How is that happening? And so that became a big issue for me, trying to get courses, double courses, move them in, extra classroom with no cost. And if they did graduate someone with a certificate of completion, which, by the way, meant that they couldn't go into the armed forces, couldn't get a GED. Well, who's going to hire you at that point? And so I put in a bill that would require the state to be responsible for at least 2 years of vocational training, whether it's in electronics, electrician, plumbing, so that they would have a life skill. That almost passed, but it didn't quite make it through. But it's those kinds of things. The education, as I said, was very important to me, and minority businesses, and that's one of the reasons I'm really going back.
I'm
The dis-
excited about that because we have a major gap when it comes down to procurement in Prince George's County, and particularly in the state. Under Hogan's administration, minority participation declined, and that shouldn't be in a minority majority county like Prince George's County, Baltimore City, and Charles County. Bruce, would you like to comment on that or add to that? Do we have you in full voice?
I was trying to get on. I can hear you guys fine. I was trying to get on my phone, but education is a major issue. I wanted to ask the senator, how do we overcome not only the deficiencies in our system, but also overcome COVID in dealing with our system, as well as the school violence?
Let me try and unpack that as I've heard you. Number one, when it comes to minority participation, it was not, and of course you didn't expect that much from a Republican administration. But my problem was when we had a Democratic governor, they were not sensitive at all to minority concerns and minority participation. Our own party, the Democrats, were my worst enemy when it came to that. In Prince George's County, we should be having as our goal, which is what I've stated to the county executive. I stated it to Westmore. I said, if you're going to work with me, here's my first priority. We're going to create a Black Wall Street in Prince George's County, meaning there are enough funds to put aside from all of these projects that can make millionaires out of any number of persons, a number of infrastructure services we can put behind them, and there are a number of what I call roadblocks that are put in the way so that minorities cannot advance, minority businesses rather cannot advance, such as the insurance, ridiculous the way they have it set up. The way that they have not only the insurance, but you have to be able to have this amount of money in the bank almost to cover the whole project when you're only looking at 20%. Those things are put in place, and I want to do away with them. I asked him before I gave any of them my support if they would be willing to do that. They said yes. I said, I'm going to hold you to it, and if you don't, I'm going to tell on you. So it's my hope that I can go back to make the kinds of tweaks in the minority participatory loan, because they can say all they want that, well, Prince George's County, we set a goal of 65%. Okay. But if you don't enforce that with the development that's coming in, it's meaningless to me. It's got to be enforced on another level. And so that's a priority because of the makeup of our county. I think that this would be a wonderful place to have a project or a how do you say it? At least a program so that other states can follow it and say, here's how, not how we lift blacks out of poverty. We're not in poverty. We're just not getting our share so that we can have some wealth to pass on. And that's not what a $30,000 contract. That is, how can I become a partner in this? How can the county and church, how can the county and state help until we get to a point where once that business becomes strong, they must reach back and do and become a mentor to get other smaller businesses along the way. Those are the kinds of things, and that's the reason I'm going back.
Now I'm sorry.
If I would, and Lisa could speak to this. The last study, we weren't nowhere close to 65%. We weren't even at 5%. What was the number, Lisa, of black contracts?
Joe had the exact numbers that was awarded. Do you still have those statistics, Joe?
Yeah, I do. The goal was 29% on the state level, and each agency at the state was doing less than 15%. Some agencies were coming in at 4 and 5% in terms of participation in Prince George County, specifically because that's where a lot of us are, and Baltimore City. But Prince George County, because they had recently completed their study, and in their study, they had determined that the subcontractors were doing around 16% African American participation, and as prime contractors under that same system, they were doing 17%, while prime white contractors were doing 60% in a county that's more than 60% African American is totally ridiculous. But I would state this because that's water over dam. We never addressed that. The new people who are in the county's administration office has not taken an aggressive role in dealing with it. And the more we bring it up, the less they want to deal with it. Now, as a new going in as new individuals, new government going in at a state level, there are some major projects that will shake your conscience. When you realize on I-270 and Route 495 project, that's a $13 billion project. The Maryland school systems itself in Prince George County alone, where you have P3 projects, and that's the new code of the day, is that you put these joint public-private partnerships together. Those numbers are around 3 to 4 billion alone just in Prince George County. Now, if you add in what's going to be done in Baltimore City and Charles County and the rest of the communities in which the state of Maryland has control of, you're talking about 10 to 15 billion dollars in school construction projects that minority companies, African Americans specifically, and I push for Native Americans because those are the original companies that were discriminated against, property was taken or was in servitude during the state and didn't get paid for years of being in slavery. And if we're going to correct discriminatory practices and change the system so it works for all, we have to get them involved in economic structure. Now, two projects that are vitally important that are not that one's not funded, but one the funding has been provided is the Green Line expansion to Waldorf. That's a major project,
Yes, it is.
and yeah, from the engineering side to the construction side, design and construction side. And the second project that I think the governor has said, Governor-elect has said that he's going to focus on is the Red Line construction for Baltimore City, which would totally revitalize Baltimore City. But again, if the black companies are left out of the procurement process, and we only become consumers again by using the system and not, by not benefiting for the construction, it's an unfair playing ground. And the senators hit on that with these barriers in bonding and financing. And we have financing vehicles in the state already that comes through commerce and comes through Stan Tucker's program that can trigger major money being provided for these companies that are not prime contractors to date, but have capacity to participate if they have access in the vehicles and the necessary access to the vehicles, which makes the other companies successful. We can make this state a better state.
Now, Senator, we've seen in the disparity study also
Joe.
that the barriers to those successes were communication, low marketing, low notification to the public. An additional barriers to that was the ability, the timing. Most contractors are receiving notice 2 weeks before the actual bid date, which means that small businesses that may be 5 and under individuals doesn't have the capacity to hire individuals to complete that task within that time frame, or to even generate that themselves and maintain other contracts. So it becomes a barrier, an additional barrier. I want to know transparency, notification, and the things we're talking about. What do you see possibly that you may be able to do in collaboration with the local government? I mean, you had an amazing team. You have a new team on the county council, a lot of new members to work with. I'm excited about.
Yes.
And I would like to see your team, that mega team in process. As the leader, what does that look like for you?
Well, first of all of the problems that you've just mentioned, I have 3 words for that because I've heard it my entire time in office. So here are the 3 words. It's by design. It's old-time designing that they put in place many years ago. And people sometimes, and I have great people and who work with me, the people that you're talking about who are on the council, 3 of them I put on my ticket, and I'll tell you why. Even though many said, "Oh, don't put them on your ticket." Well, you don't tell me who to put on my ticket. I'm the senator, and I do what I want. But the problem is, because people say, "Well, how can you have so many blacks elected, and yet nothing's being done for blacks?"
Right.
Well, I'll attribute it to one major thing. If you're only dependent on white money and white developers to get you into office, then you're going to have to at some point make a decision. Oh, am I going to be reelected again and get money? You can't be on and I'm going to use this loosely, the payroll of the white developers who choose by design who I'm going to choose, and then I'm going to go to the boss and I'm going to say, put them on your ticket. Because when they came to me and said, don't put certain people on your ticket, I knew why they were saying it. They were saying it because it would give us some support. I have to continue with the ones that I have. There are at least 6 on the council with whom I've spoken, and they've said, and I know them because I've watched some of them grow up. Some of them have worked in my office when they're teenagers and continued with the process. One we got elected when he was 18 years old out of my office to the school board. I caught hell for that. But I knew that if his heart, and that we had trained him in our office where he worked since he was in the 9th grade. When he graduated, he said, I want to run. We put him on, he won. He's still there. He's one of the new council persons. I know their hearts, and I know that if they have some mentoring, they're going to work to do what is right. We as Black leaders have got to mentor people, not based on who tells us who's good and who's not good, or who could be a threat to us and not a threat to us. Because if you do your job, you know that's irrelevant. But it's who will be the stronger leaders that I can look at today and say, 4 more years, when I leave office in 4 years, I will know I have people to turn this over to who are not going to be threatened by the government, nor will be beholden to white developers who run. They run Prince George's County. That's it.
Yes.
They run Prince George's County. And so we have to now say that's not going to take place. They should run the county council. I think those changes are going to be made. When I saw the list of mentors who were running, I decided the last minute, okay, at least if I get in, I've been in 16 years, I can use my name and put together a team of people and try and get them through. And all but 13 made it through. So I know now I have someone to work with, and I won't be there with persons who say, well, Muse, I know you're right, but you know, the president of the Senate said this, and why did he tell you that? Because his developer friend said, keep you in line. We can't do that, nor can we elect people like that. So I'm very happy to see, as the younger ones are coming in, I need their energy, I need their loyalty. They need at least some of my wisdom from being there for a long time, and they're going to make it. They're going to make the changes.
Absolutely.
Senator, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
You know, they say even a broken clock is right twice a day. And it seems like we keep going through the same thing over again with a system that's broke. I point to MGM, and I point to an individual that was very, very, for lack of a better word, mean to you during the campaign. Mike Little. We should have received more than we got from MGM. What is going to make things different now? I mean, I can remember meeting with Mr. Little and him telling us, you know, you guys should be happy with a little bit rather than a whole lot. And I think that's the mindset of the people in Prince George's County.
It is. And I can say this about Mr. Little because I've known him for a long time. I've known him and that will stop in a moment. I've known him for a very long time. And sometimes what they're really saying is, as long as I can get something for me. Mike Little is, and I can say exactly what the situation was. He had a little project. He thought he was going to get some money, and they said, don't let C. Anthony Muse get elected because he's going to go start talking about this minority development process and all that sort of thing. And we'll give you more if you can really work against him to assure that he wouldn't be elected. At that point, he had been a friend of mine for a long time. He tried to get everybody he could to run, and then he did find someone and ran them. But it Mike Little. If you look at the funding, the money was passed on to my opponent through the white developers. What saved me was that, thank God, I had a little bit of money on my own, and I was able to put my own money in and overcome whatever money they had put in. But everyone can't do that. You have to expose people for who they are and not be afraid or ashamed. You have to build up a group of persons who will support such persons in the Black community when the white press, and I've caught it from the Washington Post, and I know why, down through the years, I've caught it through many media. I'm a bad person. And no, I wasn't a bad person. I was simply saying, give us what is ours. I was getting a little strong, and you had to tried to take away my influence by printing something and printing it in other minds. But when you can reach into the Black community and take someone like a Mike Little and cause him to go against someone who, by the way, I was responsible for a lot of things that I had to go to bat for with him. Because these guys said, no, and we need you to be the face of this. That's what he did. People like that, we need to call out by name. People like that, we need to say they're not good in the Black political community. They're only concerned about themselves. And those aren't the kind of people I can work with. And I said what I want to say, and I'll call names. If you call names, I'll call names. But I will tell you the truth of who they are. He's a small businessman trying to get money, and they said no, but do something else because we can't have anybody influencing over here. And he bought into it, and he broke a friendship that has been with. I've been his friend for over 20 years. Couldn't understand why he did it until he looked into it and found out. So I'll be calling his name everywhere I go. That's it.
You know, I saw Cornelius.
Do you see Cornelius on there?
Yes, I'll address you in a minute, Cornelius. But Senator, you know, I saw one of the ugliest things happen at the polls in your race with Tamara Brown, with Mike Little's assistants, and many of the. We're talking Gloria Lawler, Mike Little, and the former Senator. The folks that circled around to push a lie as a female.
Correct.
With my rights at stake right
Correct.
now, under attack, to have a false statement or accusation put out was totally unfair.
Yeah,
literally, I was shameful of the politics that took place, and I would like to hear your feedback on that attack because I'm proud of the way that you handled that.
Thank you. I'll give a synopsis of what that was. They put out flyers that were paid for by other people. When the Supreme Court made the decision of Roe versus Wade, they thought, okay, here's a man running against a woman, so here's what we'll do. So Michael, Senator Gloria Lawler, Senator O.B. Patterson, who again, I love them. I'm proud of some of the things that they've done, but I've not been proud of the fact that everyone else runs them and the white folks tell them what to do. So they came up with, we're going to mail to every household that Muse is going to take away your right to reproductive rights. They sent it to every house. Then others, a few other unions got involved, and they sent out robocalls to everyone to try and frighten them. That was the only thing that they could think of. Couldn't think of anything on my record. Couldn't think of anything else. I'm great, and I decided not to address it at all. My voters knew who I am. I've got a whole history of voting on that and other issues. And so I was able to win anyway. But here's my point. When they come into our community and can say, well, as white people, we can't go in and say they're bad. So let's pick some Black people. Let's offer them something in return. And let's all turn on him and try and get others to turn on him from within. Then that can be detrimental. In my case, I won anyway. And so it didn't matter. But I would not want to see them continuing to do that. So I will call out their names wherever I go and say, do not listen to them. They are liars, and they will do anything for a few bucks. End the story, whether people like my bluntness or not. It is what it is. I don't owe anybody except the people who voted me in. I don't need money. I don't need anything from anybody else. I will do what I want to do. And if something is detrimental to the Black community, I will say it, I will tell it, and I will call names and let the chips fall where they may.
Senator, they say when you go low, when they go low, we go high. And I applaud you for that. And that rolls us right over into our ending segment in our last 15 minutes.
Lisa, before you go there, while we're on there, we had one item that was vitally important.
Did I miss
and it? That's further along the lines that Senator Muse was talking about.
I'm sorry.
And it's ethics. Now, Monique Anderson Walker was found on August 17, 2021 to have violated county ethics rules by voting on council resolutions that financially benefited the White Rose Foundation. And the White Rose Foundation is the charitable arms of the Links Foundation, which she represented as a broker from 2018 to 2020.
Correct.
And by hiring an employee at her brokerage firm and also in her council office. Now, the case came before the Board of Ethics for Prince George County, Maryland, in a closed hearing on June 7th and the 8th in 2021. and the council member Walker, who is the principal broker of Ordelou, a commercial real estate advisory services business located in Oxon Hill, Maryland, in your district, worked as a broker for the White Rose Foundation. And that White Rose Foundation was headed up by who? Former Senator Gloria Lawler. It is also the charitable arm of the Prince George County, Maryland chapter of the Links between the years of 2018 to 2020. Now, the White Rose Foundation Inc. funds through their nonprofit component, funds and provides innovative empowerment programs in health, education, and arts for underserved women and youth, primarily in Prince George County, and is under the care also of Gloria Lawler. The Board of Ethics found that the council member Walker voted on resolutions and recommended a White Rose Foundation receive $350,000 for a Suitland location there, and funnel that money back from one entity back to the other. And it recommended that the White Rose Foundation, headed by Gloria Lawler, she recommended that they would receive $405 additional $1,000 in funding, as well as receive a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for that project. Now, in summary, for the people who don't understand the intricacies of government, that meant basically this. Monique Walker sent grant money to Gloria Lawler's nonprofit, the White Rose Foundation. Gloria sent the money to the Links to purchase real estate, a building that Anderson Walker's firm is an agent, and receive a commission for the sale. So that's the kind of shenanigans that's taking place in our local government, and it needs to stop. So I just wanted to stop, Senator, and to have you to address that for a little bit.
Let me just quickly sum it up this way. That is an ethical issue, and because I was a member of the state, I was a commissioner. I was a state ethics commissioner. What I'm waiting to see them do, I know the case, and in short, money was sent to. You called the names out, so I'll just to Gloria
White
Lawler
Rose Foundation. Yes.
Money should not have been passed that way with the building that was purchased, in which this particular council person who voted for it and pushed it. She was also on the real estate agency, so she got money back for selling a building, et cetera, et cetera. But there's more involved to that. If the State Ethics Commission, that is what they are supposed to move on to from the County Ethics Commission to the State Ethics Commission. I'm shocked that it has not been moved on. I'm waiting to see if they are going to do it. I do have a copy of it. I have a copy of the complaint. I have a copy of the entire charges that were brought on the local level. I'll be glad to send that to you or anyone else, because if I don't see them pushing it, I'm going to turn that in. We can't have this on any level, and especially among those of us who get elected. People see that it was covered, and because of the campaigns or whatever, it was covered up. But the ethics board actually found them guilty of violating the law, in which you vote on a project for your friend and you get money back and weren't really sure. And then no one knew that White Rose Foundation was the foundation, the LLC of, you said it, Gloria Lawler. All of that should have been sent to the Ethics Commission. I don't know where it was and why it was not. But because, again, and I speak from experience, as a member of 4 years as serving as an ethics commissioner for the state of Maryland, it should have been pushed on. And if it's not pushed on by them, I'll give them some little more time to do it, then I will send it myself.
Wow. Thank you, Senator Muse. That is so interesting. And speaking of ethics, this does go right into our closing conversation that we're going to have with Cornelius. Cornelius is the owner of Collision Towing Company.
What's up, Cornelius? What's up?
Muse, how you doing?
What up? I'm doing well, man.
Man, I'm still having the problems.
Cornelius, if you can give us a little bit of background,
Yeah.
tell us how long you've been in business, where
And
your
I've
business
known,
is
yeah.
located, and then tell us what problems that you're having you would like to discuss with the senator.
Okay. I've been in business since 1997. I was then in Washington. I moved to Maryland because I heard of all the opportunities in Maryland, but I've since found out that it's not really here. Mr. Muse, like I told you a long time ago, is still holding all the opportunities back in the touring game. They have nothing changed. We went down to the Maryland House, got some of the rules changed. They put them in the hands of procurement, and procurement didn't know nothing about the touring game. So what they do, they brought all the bad people right along with them. So nothing ever changed. So, but the problem I'm having now is the police department. I mean, the owners of vehicles are calling us to come and tow their cars, and the police department is telling our cranes that we pay license on that we cannot tow these people's cars because we're not on their list. Well, AAA, Geico Motor Club, and none of the companies are on their list. But
Correct.
you pay for this, so why can't you use what you pay?
Correct. I
And
mean,
then-
I
Sir?
remember you came to my office. I think you came to my office with the issue with the towing and with the police, and I called the police chief in, if you remember that. And what I found out, and I did, and here's the law that I put in relative to what, if you remember, because you walked me through that, we have institutions like the Police Department, Board of Education, others, in which contracts have been held by certain people from their grandfather to the father to the son.
Correct.
And in your situation, these towing contracts were held by families who owned tow truck companies who never had to bid. They were automatically given for 30, 40 years. I found out in the Board of Education, there were people who represented the Board of Education. Well, you get $2-3 million a year. This one contract was handed down from the grandfather to the father to the son.
Wow.
And it was only when you came in and I got involved and saw what it was, that I was able to put a law in that says no matter how long you have a contract, everything must go out for bid. But this is what they were used to doing in Prince George and Georges County. This is why I was not their favorite, but I did get that much done and got them to break up and look into, the whole towing situation across the board. I remember your situation.
Well, Mr. Muse, let me tell you what happened. I talked to the lieutenant that works underneath the chief today. She told me she was going to investigate something that I called her about. Then the guy calls me, one of them old timers. He called me from the towing coordination. He tells me, well, you showed up and the man didn't have your phone number in his phone. What? That's the reason why you can't tow it, because you don't have, this man didn't call you because he doesn't have your phone number in his phone. Well, anybody could have called me for him. Why does it have to be in his phone?
That's right.
That's a rule. What kind of rule is that?
Well, it's what they want to say to cover it. And give me 2 months and you come back to my office. I think you when I talked to you, it was my last year in office, but I think we held a meeting with you, the police chief, to address it. They said they were going to address it, but to be sure that they would, at least I was able to put the bill in that says you will not pass down a contract. In other words, we're talking about generational wealth made off of taxpayers' money when you pass a $5, $6, $10 million contract from the grandfather who then has a son take over, and then the son has a son take over. That was absolutely what I found out as a result of your coming to me and saying that.
Well, Mr. Muse, this is what I asked that they do. At least let the office put a memo out and allow the owners to have a right to pick and choose who they want to tow their car.
Correct.
A woman, say for instance, I don't have a job, but I have a friend with a tow truck. When they tow it automatically, you got a $300 bill and storage at $75 a day. First of all, I don't have a job, so you just took my car.
Right.
You literally stole my car.
Right.
That's what you're doing.
Right.
And the police are going to say, well, it doesn't matter because we're going to use our own cranes. Well, sir, I have a crane that can tow my car. Well, forget your crane. Your crane isn't my crane. Sounds like a pay-to-play move to me.
Wow.
That's what it sounds like.
It is.
I have a tow truck, but my tow truck can't tow my car. It has to be one of your cranes. First of all, when did y'all start on the cranes?
Correct.
That's all I want to say. Am I saying something wrong?
You are absolutely, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but you're absolutely correct.
I know.
And hopefully now that I have at least a team of people that I put on my ticket and I financed as an alternative to other people choosing who the Black leadership will be. And again, out of 13 of them, they're I got them on the council level. I got them on the House of Delegates. I have them in the Senate. So I go in now with a group of people that I've been able, just because of longevity and knowing the ropes, to not ask any of them for any money, put a lot of my own money into it, put it together, and we got them elected. Those are the ones that I want to sit down with who can do and go further with it than I was able to go.
Mr. Muse, I know you're busy, but I want to say one more thing. Me and Mr. Bruce had a Zoom meeting with the chief. He told me and Mr. Bruce that he was going to open back up this list. Still, it hasn't been open. Still, you got 40 cranes on the list. And by God, thanks to me, you have now 2 Black companies on the list. But they wouldn't put me on because they claim I started the bullshit to get the Black people on the list. You follow me?
Unless something is done by legislation, and that is what here are my hopes, and I'll stop with this. My hopes are, because new people are in, my hopes are because we have a first minority Black governor who had to fight his way up in a political arena, and because we have the first minority as lieutenant governor, that I will have someone to go to say, help me get this done, and I won't have to fight them to do it. Right. I've had conversations, as I said, with everyone from Angela Also Brooks to Westmore, and I've said, here is my agenda. Don't ask for my help or my vote unless you're willing. They agreed that they would do it. Now I'm going to go and present it, but I'll present it with a number of other new elected people that put out ticket and got elected. So I'll have support.
One thing I want to say, Mr. Muse, I've been fighting with you a long time.
Yes.
I've been with you all the way through the trip.
Yes, you have.
Gentlemen, we are 2 minutes over. Yes. We're going to bring in our closing.
And I hope I've kept my word with you, if nothing else.
Thank you, Mr. Muse. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you.
I just need a little bit of help. That's a little bit.
Come see me as soon as I'm sworn in. You get down there in 2 months.
So we're looking forward to a party. So, gentlemen, we are over our time limit. It is now 8:03, and I want to allow you to give your closing goodbyes before I give the final closing. Say goodbye to our guests here. Where the senator? Did we lose the senator?
You did, but you can still close.
Joe Gaskins, we want to thank you. Bruce Branch, Cornelius, you're amazing always. And of course, we love our newly re-elected Senator C. Anthony Muse. I'm Lisa Ellis. I thank you for joining us this evening. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night. That's on television. Thank you. So we're going to be on the Black Forum.
You did good, man.
Thank you.
My hands, I got the phone in my hand.
Hey, Marlene, you did good. What?
Y'all did good. Your medicine is $77, and I voted van up there, and I ain't go with no money. If they close, you got to get them on.
$77.